Hello everyone, I'm Michael Sillion, Captain Future, and I'm here to talk today about a little bit of my concept of Ikigai 4.0, future navigation, and how you become your authentic version of yourself. So my philosophy is that every human has the ability and the possibility to become more authentic version of themselves, and that they are able to learn throughout their life what it is to become more human. And in that they learn four things that I think are very important. They first will learn love. That includes everything from empathy, compassion, caring for yourself and caring for others. People learn what I call curiosity. It's a skill where you're constantly curious on yourself and the world. They learn what we call wisdom. That is the lifelong experience of becoming more you and understanding the world and yourself. And also the fourth thing that I would like to promote more is silliness or playfulness. That is your ability to have a humorous way or a silly way to look at the world, because when you put on your silly glasses, everything else becomes more handleable, and it's much easier not to hate or not to feel fear when you have a silly mindset. Even if you have a dire challenge or a hardship in your life, using silliness as a tool is a very good for you. I use it a lot. So I'm going to talk about personal authentication. I use a method that I call Ikigai 4.0, Flourishing Me. In Ikigai, it's a Japanese concept that means becoming who you are in the world, and that includes what can I contribute to the world and what can the world contribute back to me, and how can I find meaning in this. You may have seen a 4-circle Venn diagram about this, where they say things like, what is your passion, what are your skills, what can you get paid for, and what do the world needs. This is a very simple version of the Ikigai method, and I have made a much more complex model, because now we live in a complex world. We have always lived in a complex world, but the world's become more day that goes. That is, we get more knowledge about ourselves and the world through science, that we discover more things. We get more information every day. Now we live in, some people call it the information age, where when we started using computers and hard drives to store digital information, the amount of information has exploded in the world. Even before we had digital information, we had books and reports and newspapers and movies and TV and radio, but now we have so much more, and the amount of information that we produce every day goes up. So the amount of complexity information goes up. And how do we handle this? Also, the amount of people increases in the world, the amount of innovations, product and services we supply to each other goes up in the world. The amount of interaction between all these 7.8 billion people we have in the world now also goes up. As we use tools like internet and social media, we also make more connections, way beyond our usual number we would make connection with before we lived in an internet connected world. So everything in complexity goes up. And how do we handle all this as humans, as society, and as a global species? So my thoughts about this is that we actually have to have a tool to navigate our own life to start with. And in navigating, I mean the navigating in two senses, both exploring the unknown and also mapping out, as you explore the unknown, what some people already have discovered. So it's a good verb to use when you discover something. So I use the word navigate. How do you navigate your own life? In that, I have 5 categories that is related to this Ikigai that I have in my model. So I will go down them briefly. The first category is, what are you curious about? What puts you in a flow state? And what do you find enchanting? And in that, things that you can study, what can you read about for hours without getting tired or bored? What can you go about doing at your home, at work, with friends, and lose track of time? And what can put you in what we call deep flow state? If you if you're a skier or a football player or a dancer like me, you can spend hours doing something in high pulse, high energy mode. That's why we call high flow states. If you read something online and you forget time for 2 to 3 hours, that's what we call low energy flow state, where your pulse is low. So this is a difference. But this is things you can explore. What puts you into flow? What makes you curious? And what do you find enchanting? What makes your day or your week light up? It can be a friend. It can be doing a hobby. It can be going to work. It can be solving a problem, stuff like that. So if you map down that and put down a list between 20 to 100 things that about this, you have a good idea who you really are in the core. And in that, some of these things you're actually good at, or you have a talent for, a knack for, and some of the things you're very curious about, but it's not something that someone else would spend time with you listening to, or actually buy a product or service that you perform during this. But this is all your skills and talents, and they're combined with the things you're curious about. I can be good at something without actually being curious about it also, but that doesn't mean I will perform a good service or product with it necessarily. But this is also things you map down. What are my skills and talents? What do I have a knack for? What do I absolutely not have a knack for? And it can be silly things, or it can be serious things. Like I'm very good sitting with my knees close to my face. So I'm very agile. It's not something I can perform as. If not, I wear a circus artist or something like that. But I'm also very good at connecting the dots. But that's something I can get paid for. So there's different skills and talents. And apart from that, we have a category where what I call the dojo, the training round, the mentor. How do you train your abilities and skills? Where do you go to be curious about something? It can be a place like a library, a training dojo. It could be an event that you go to annually or once per week, or even every day. It can be a YouTube channel or a podcast that you listen to. It can be a book you read. All these things that gives you new insights and inputs. And you have to understand that you have to actually seek out things that make you feel good or train yourself about stuff. So the more you increase the awareness of where your dojo or your event or your mentor is, the better you become on seeking them out. There's a saying that says you become like the 5 friends you spend the most time with, and there's something very true in that, but it's not the entire truth. But seek out people who do what you want to do. If you're not comfortable in your current life or your current situation, try to seek out a new environment, make new friends, or just hang around people doing stuff you want to do and see what happens. And the fourth part I will call enablers. This is like something that traditionally we used for the last 100 years to get an employment. Before that, no one was employed. You weren't employed as a farmer or a hunter in the hunter-gatherer society or the farmer society. You were a farmer or you were a hunter. But today it's much more complex than just getting an employment, having a title or official work role. You actually understand that there's a lot more going on. First of all, most of us have family or friends that we interact with or comply with. We have hobbies or interests that affects our life. We need to have time. A regular day only have 24 hours, and many of us try to stretch as much as we can. That means we lessen our sleep and don't feel good about that. So that's a major problem in society today. So we have to manage our time. Most of us need money to pay rent, to pay food, to pay for all the things we do. So we need money in some shape or form. But most of us also need access to various kinds of networks and enablers. So if you want to do something, you have to know one. If you want to get the good work, you have to usually know someone that can get you that work. If you don't apply to it officially or stuff like that. But then you have to access to that as well. And you have to access to internet and knowledge, basic things like that. So there are lots more enablers. I won't go into them, but there are literally hundreds of enablers to have to be aware of. I just want to mention one that is one of my favorite things. Are you an ambassador for someone else? Do you help someone get access to something? Or do you need an ambassador yourself that helps you get access to something? This is a conversation we seldom have. So we can call them gatekeepers if you use the network analogy. So a gatekeeper or an ambassador. Are you a gatekeeper or ambassador yourself? or do you know a gatekeeper or ambassador that you need help from? So this is something you have to be very aware of. Have an open conversation about, I need help with this. Who can I reach out to that can help me with this? This is the ambassador or gatekeeper for you, or something like that. And traditionally, if you think about the actor in Hollywood who has an agent who gets him the role, so the agent for you, that have a domain knowledge in the field you actually have to get your work or your casting in. And the last part of Ikigai is what I call your meaning or your why. There's a book by Simon Sinek that says start with why. It's a fairly good book, but it's not the entire truth. But there's something in it that. There's also a new course online that called Awakening from the Meaning Crisis for John Mavike that talks a lot about this. What is your place, your value contribution in the world? How do you find meaning, your purpose, your passion, or your wisdom? And all this is integrated into all four fields. But how do you contribute? My basic definition of a society is where everyone gets good at something so that I can create surplus value that I can share with someone else. Usually today we sell this this value through money or time as an employment or as an entrepreneur or a consultant or whatever that is. But we sell our surplus value to someone else, and when everyone creates surplus value, there's a surplus of value in society. That makes society possible, or else we would go out and hunt our own food, make our own clothes and stuff like that, and we don't do that anymore. I buy my clothes, I buy my food from people who are create surplus food and surplus clothes. And in this, you have to find, how do you create value to society today? There are many people today, like criminals and some would say all the people in the financial industry that actually don't create value for everyone else. They're like parasites of society, and they can get away with it as long as there's enough people actually growing food in the fields or fishing and farming and stuff like that. But if everyone worked in the finance industry, there would be nothing for anyone. Instead, we had a lot of money, but we had nothing to spend the money on. So this is things I like to talk about and think about. So there you have the whole Ikigai concept, and in this you map it out, and it's a lifelong journey of lifelong learning, who you want to be and what you have the ability to become. And you interact with other people and discuss this further. I also want to talk a little bit about a concept what we call future navigation. How do you create an environment where you actually can do your lifelong journey, what we call a learning society? And there are four parts of this that I'm interested in, and we call them eventification, journification, amplification, and unification. Eventification is the ability to create an event of anything. Anything can be an event. Me going to the toilet is a very small event, or me going to a big festival is a larger event, or me being employed at the workplace for a year is an event. So everything is event, but that's a broader definition of an event. But if you actually think about it, there's a lot of events in society today, and some of them are poorly designed, and some of these events are actually magical, things you long to do. And it can be everything. You've all been to a magical event, at least I hope so, and you can all long for a place or a musical festival or a conference or a family gathering or Christmas, whatever it is. You can long for something that you feel magical. And what is it that makes this event magical, and how can we make more events magical? There's a lot of go into this, but this is a basic question I use for eventification. How can we make our daily and our yearly and life-defining moments more magical? And we also have what we call journification. That is the ability and the mindset to make your life into inner and outer journey. Like the inner journey is discovering who yourself are, developing your skills, what we call the 21st century skills, empathy, creativity, collaboration and stuff like that. But also the outer journey of seeking perspective, new wisdom, new knowledge, new talents, so that we can become better versions of ourselves. That means you can go on a course, you can go on a journey, you can go on a discovery path out in the world somewhere. It can be locally in your hometown, or it can be actually out in the world. So you can travel and meet new people, get new insights, get new perspective of how things work, and understand that you will have to get outside your bubble. This is about what we call bubble hopping. That is when you get outside your own bubble, your own sphere of influence, to understand how different people see the world differently. And then we have what we call amplification. Today, everything we spend time on, we get better at usually. So if I specifically go and train a skill, I get better at it. But if I do something daily, like I cook potatoes daily, if I play special interest in how I cook potatoes, I get better and better until I reach a certain level. Then I have to seek out a master potato cooker to get even better at cooking potatoes and stuff like that. But everything we do, we spend time on, we get better at. That means even bad stuff. If I constantly sit on Twitter and spew hatred towards people, I get better at spewing hatred. So this is also something we can get better at. In this, there's a larger thing going on there. Now that we have internet and a complex network society, everything I do echoes throughout my network. So if I spend time with 5 friends that influence me, I also influence my 5 friends. So everything we do in our environment, in the groups, online, and everything we do creates feedback loops, so we amplify things. So this is what we call amplification. Storytelling and narration is traditionally a very good amplification. When you had mass media, you had books, you had radio, you had TV and movies that everyone saw, that with one story, one narration in each product or each artifact of this, that amplified one story or one worldview. The Bible is a classic example of a story and a book that amplified a continuous story throughout the ages. But today we have a lot of smaller events. Everyone watches their own podcast, their own YouTube channel, read their own books that amplified you. You hang around with your friend discussing your things, and everything you do in your group echoes and amplifies and creates feedback loops. So this we have to understand. How does group dynamic and networks work when we amplify and create feedback loops? This is also called ontological design in some cases. And then we have what we call unification. How do we actually become better co-workers, better family members, better community members? Everything we do in society where we interact with each other, how do we become a good community member? We don't have to be a leader, but we have to be a pleasant person to be around that can contribute and people actually want to spend time with. And we also, if you want to create value, we had to work together. And like they used 400,000 people to put the first man on the moon, and they all worked in unison. And I have various kinds of unification strategies to make all these people work together. This is like a large example. But if you work in a smaller project, a smaller firm, or if you want to progress your family, have a good family life, you have to understand that you have to have theories and knowledge around how do you spend time with other people. So this is the basic concept. There is a lot more I could talk about, but I think I'll stop there. So this is some of the things I'm thinking about on a daily basis and have workshops in and courses and everything. So this is things I can help you with. So this is me, Michael Sillion, Captain Future. Thank you so much.